Hey everyone, I wanted to take a few moments to go over theme, or rather identifying theme, not just in Hamilton, but being able to identify theme in other works. So, for what you're going to be doing with Hamilton, it's going to revolve around theme identification, but for next year, you're going to hear the word theme a lot in English 4 AP. And you will often be asked to identify the theme of a work. Now, for a lot of you, theme, especially perhaps freshman and sophomore year, theme was a one-word statement. What is the theme of this work? Loss or death or guilt or greed, whatever it may be. Um, First and foremost, this is not to dismiss what your previous teachers have said. This is just to build on to that. So when you're a freshman and you're saying, well, this has the theme of greed, what you were actually saying was a thematic idea, which is almost like an umbrella statement. And so your theme statement, the specific theme, would fall under the umbrella that you chose. So if that umbrella was guilt, then you're going to have a theme statement that has to do with guilt or greed or power or whatever it may be. So first off, what is theme? Well, theme is essentially what the work is saying about the human condition. So in other words, the idea that the work communicates about the human condition, and that work it has to be a narrative. So that's not in the notes, but it's most often a narrative. It can be nonfiction or fiction, but it has to tell a story. Okay, that's what a narrative means. Is there is a story going on, and so when we read a narrative, we should usually be able to identify a theme from that work. But like I said, theme is what the work is saying about the human condition. In other words, what it means to be human in a given set of circumstances. Okay, it's not just about what it means to be human. That's almost too broad. It is what it means to be human in a given set of circumstances. And the reason I say that is because if we say just what it means to be human, then our theme statement's going to be too broad, and if it's too broad, it's too simple. Okay, every work of literature that you read is going to be complex. Okay, and so a complex work of literature is going to have a complex theme. So if you're talking about just what it means to be human in general, you're ignoring the circumstances of what the person goes through in the narrative itself. Now, theme can be broad, meaning it can apply to multiple situations, but it's not always universal. Again, that gets back to a given set of circumstances. When you identify a theme of a work, it may not be able to be universally applied. Again, because of the circumstances that the person in the story is in. And then once you identify a theme, turn to the elements of the story that communicate it best. Look at the figurative language. Look at imagery, look at dialogue, look at character action. All of those things help support the idea of the theme that the author is trying to communicate. So as I said earlier, theme is never a one-word statement. When asked a theme, don't just say death. Death can be a thematic idea, but it's not the complete theme. Again, death is one word and it's too simple. A simple theme cannot be applied to a complex work. For example, in Things Fall Apart, Achebe, it's the author, uses the symbol of Okakwo's broken gun and its accidental killing of a child to communicate the idea that a lack of self-acceptance, especially denying one's past, is dangerous to all involved. So the theme is a lack of self-acceptance, especially denying one's past, is dangerous to all involved. That is the theme. The first part's about things fall apart in the symbol of the broken gun. That is my thesis. That is the thing that supports the lack of self-acceptance on Okakwo's behalf. Another thing to know about theme, it is never a directive, a moral, or a cliche. For example, don't love someone who is unwilling to reciprocate that love. that statement is a directive. You're telling the reader what to do, and that's not a theme. A theme doesn't have the word do in it. It also doesn't have the word should in it. Because if you see should, like below, those who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, it's most likely a moral. Okay, so a theme is not a directive. You're not telling the reader what to do, and you're not giving them some lesson. You're not giving them a moral. Okay, theme, again, is a statement about the human condition. It's not advice, basically. And then also, too, those who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. That's so cliche. And as an AP student, you have to start moving out of cliche. If it feels cliche, it's probably cliche. And although, like, not to hurt feelings, but yeah, you'll probably hear me say that sometimes when trying to get to a really, really good theme statement. Now, if you start with something cliche and you move to the complex, that's no problem. You start with something simple and let it get complex, that's fine. If a cliche is a starting point, that's okay. It's just, it can't be the finish line when we're identifying theme. So, when you identify theme, much like rhetoric, I want you to look at everything the author is saying, doing, and using. So they could use figurative language, metaphor, imagery, diction, symbolism, etc. They could use literary elements, tone, character action, dialogue, points of view, things like that. Really, anything goes. Anything that an author is making the characters do or say can be used to support the idea of what the theme is. Excuse me. Case in point, Hamilton. Lin-Manuel Miranda is the author. And in Hamilton, you have different characters, you have different points of view, and Miranda uses those different characters, different points of view, and lyrics to communicate a theme. It's your job to figure out what that theme might be, and it's the same thing with any work of art or literature, really, that tells a story. So I want to use Macbeth as an example. So using what we've talked about, the difference between a thematic idea and a theme statement, let's come up with something sufficiently complex. So if I were to ask someone, what is the theme of Macbeth? They're going to say greed. Okay, that's the thematic idea. How can we turn greed into a theme statement? Somebody may say, well, greed causes people to do terrible things. Okay, that's a good start. Yes, it does. That is true. But how can that be a theme that gets a little more complex than that? Because that's too vague and too broad. It's too general in terms of the truth. Like someone could say, well, it's true, yeah, but it's not specific enough. How about this one? And I have to give credit to my 5th hour. Thank you, Matt, for coming up with this theme statement. By overstepping moral values in the pursuit of power, one can figuratively and sometimes literally lose one's head. I love that. And if you've read Macbeth, you know that Macbeth oversteps moral values in the pursuit of power and literally loses his head at the end, but he also figuratively loses it. He loses his mind. He goes insane. So this is a really good theme statement. It's not telling someone what to do. It's not a should statement. It's not saying one should not overstep moral values so they don't lose their head, or you're not giving advice, or you're not telling them what to do. And it's not cliche. It is very specific. It's very complex. And moreover, this is just one of the themes. Okay, if a work is sufficiently complex, which most that you read in high school will be, it's going to have multiple themes. So it's not just to say that greed is the only theme. You can have multiple themes going on. So just keep that in mind. And as you listen to Hamilton and explore some of the songs and the lyrics and that, I want you to start thinking about what themes you can find. And of course, if you have any questions, send me a message.